Alrighty, so we're here with Nathan. Do you prefer Nate? Jonathan is fine. We're going to do like a 1 year review. We're going to look back on the anniversary of Batman vs. Superman, and we're going to do like a little introduction by him. He's going to tell us how he got involved with the DC Comics originally and how he first heard about the DC movie universe.
And I'll try to keep this as short as possible, but my experience with DC growing up probably would be start with Batman. When I was about 4 or 5 years old, I think Batman the Animated Series, the Bruce Timm show, Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill. I remember as a kid, we had I had action figures, bed sheets, pillowcases of the animated series. We bought like Robin's origin story on VHS. I remember those were, and I watched, on TV Land, I watched some of Adam West's shows. So I had these two distinct different Batmans. So it is kind of a foreshadowing of today, where people prefer either a lighthearted or a dark DC. So it's kind of like I got the luxury of enjoying both as a kid. And I don't know, I think for me, as a kid, I was able to enjoy Adam West, but I think as an adult, I appreciate the more darker aspects of the character too. It's more complex. There's a complexity to the darkness. I eventually saw the Michael Keaton film. I saw Batman Forever first, and then I think eventually later I saw I remember the moment I didn't watch the movie. I saw the Joker on the cartoon show every week, and seeing Batman kill the Joker in the '89 film. I'm like, holy. The Joker's dead. He's dead. What's this? And, so Batman growing up, that was, I think it was Batman, Spider-Man, and X-Men. Those were the first three heroes. And I think I got introduced to Superman, through an action figure. I thought he looked cooler. For some reason, I took off his cape, and I thought he looked cooler with the cape. And I think this was actually, because I didn't know what the Death of Superman was, but I think he had the long hair action figure, so it was based off of the the Death and Return of Superman look, after the Reign of Superman showed up. And for the longest time, I was more into the X-Men, because the movie just came out, so I started reading a bunch of Jim Lee stuff. And then I think I got back into DC again, mostly, when the Teen Titans show came out, and I started reading Teen Titans comics again. And it was again, it's it's completely two different worlds, campy Batman, darker Batman, anime-style Teen Titans versus the more comic-booky Teen Titans of the world. Because the one thing I like about the comics, what was extracting the comics, is in the Teen Titans cartoon show, the Leaguers never showed up. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, none of them really showed up. We're not going to count Teen Titans Go. But I actually have the iconic comic where they pay homage to the first appearance of the founding members of Teen Titans. I think it's Teen Titans Go number 50. Not to be confused with the show, but the comic adapted is called Teen Titans Go from 2003 to 2006. They had Robin, Aqualad, Speedy, Kid Flash, and Wonder Girl on there, and I thought that was really cool. I think I still have that comic somewhere. And I kind of started reading DC a lot more then. I delved into Marvel a little bit. I cherry pick Marvel. I'm not a Marvel fan. I'm just more of a cherry picker. I like certain characters. I don't think I've ever read a Thor comic. Haven't really read an Iron Man comic before that. I've read Superman. I've read the Teen Titans. I've read Superboy. I have so many Robin comics. I'm a huge Tim Drake fan, so I even collect. I have some Red Robin comics as well. And I read some of the Justice League comics. I bought some Flash comics. Every time the sidekicks show up, it was the dynamic of Wally West or Bart Allen or Superman and Superboy or Batman or Tim's Robin or even Wonder Woman and Cassie as Wonder Girl. I don't know, it was something about that dynamic that really attracted me, which is ironic because with Stan Lee, he made Spider-Man because he was really sick of the whole adults as superheroes, so he wanted to make a teen suit. But to be fair to Tim Drake, he is I didn't really see him as Batman's sidekick because he had his own solo. He was just kind of it was like his teammate. It was like a partner in crime. They were kind of like equals in a lot of ways. There's even a comic where Nightwing when Dick Grayson was Batman after Batman falling Batman rest in peace, where him and Tim talk about how they're equals. They're not, one's not bigger than the other. And I think that if you look at the comics like that, I mean, if you want to like and see a teenage superhero, without being a partner or without being a sidekick, Spider-Man's great too. But it's just something about the dynamic that got me attracted to DC Comics. And now, with that being said, I started like the DC films, because like going back to what I said about the X-Men films, there weren't really a lot. DC wasn't really releasing a lot of stuff. I mean, I think part of it had to do with the backlash, the negativity, heavy negativity of Batman and Robin, because a lot of people hated that movie and people make fun of it today. Even though it's kind of like a so bad it's good kind of movie for me. I'll pop it in and laugh at it. And
cool question. So you're getting into movies, right? You're going to New York, which is like one of the biggest headquarters for all the Marvel comics, and it's the iconic city of Gotham City and Metropolis and all that stuff. It's also the site of one of my favorite films called Seven by Andrew Kevin Walker, and that movie is like his love letter to New York, which is really depressing. Anyway, so what do you like? I'm a little bit older, so different generation. We used to enjoy movies before the internet, right? So my question to you is, with your movie background, like how would you describe like the situation between like what a popular movie is versus like a movie that you like? For instance, like Night of the Living Dead would not be a good movie right now, or Godzilla movies would like get horrible ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. My favorite luchador movies would be panned. Like, do you see it like a difference between like what people consider good because they like it, or good because they're good?
Yeah, it is something I've thought about even before. I think I discovered Rotten Tomatoes by a guy. It's just some random guy. He does, "Hi, I'm a Marvel, I'm a DC." I think he's the guy who said objectively, like, I think it was like during one of his Father's Day video as Batman, he was like, "Take your dad to a movie, a good movie, at least 70% on the tomato meter." And that was the first time I heard of Rotten Tomatoes. And before then, I didn't really differentiate. I just go by what scenes I like. If I like more scenes than I didn't, mostly with movies. Like, I think that's kind of like when you go, like, I studied film. I took 2 years a film class in high school, 2 years of film classes in college, and I've seen really boring films. In fact, a lot of my class did not like Citizen Kane. My teacher was like surprised. They said it was like the worst film we saw that year. So it just goes to show how far subjectivity is. You can probably meet one of the most pretentious, egotistical film teachers. I think somebody online had a film teacher like that who felt insulted by BS. He's kind of like the film critic Rex Reed, where like Rex Reed is a hard film critic to impress. I think the thing is, much like how people are different, critics are different too. Like one of my favorite film critics, the late great Roger Ebert. He definitely felt more like a fan, but knew a lot about critics. In fact, I think a Warner Brothers property, Mad Magazine, was his biggest influence. So, regarding your question, I think it depends on the person. Like, if you're a person who just wants to like have a good time seeing a movie and doesn't analyze or dissect movies, or dissect them in a way that's not considered conventional, that's entirely up to you. One of my favorite movies I would watch like every couple of years, throw it in, has a horrible tomato rating, 11%, and that's Kung Pao, Enter the Fist. I quote that movie like every time I go to Taco Bell. I sing the Taco Bell. Sorry, I hope that's not offensive. And it has a higher audience rating. So people would also use the label guilty pleasure. Like something you that would be considered bad, but you like anyway, or afraid to admit you like. I think that term should be eliminated. Honestly, it's kind of discrepancy, because I think a person should be allowed to enjoy what they want to enjoy. Because some people would give me crap for movies that I thought were good, but that many people thought were bad, even before BVS. I think one movie, Green Lantern, I guess, is one I like, and people were like, "Really, you like that movie?" And I don't know. Yeah, I was like, I didn't think it was like a masterpiece, but I enjoyed it for what it was. I think critics were a bit mean on that film, and I think people, like, if you watch it now, watching it now, it doesn't age as well compared to a lot of superhero movies. But I don't know. I still would not. It's like what 26%. I don't think it's worth that much. So yeah, to anyone listening out there, if you are somebody who like takes a critic's opinion really seriously, or if you have a similar mindset, like this mindset of how to analyze films and all. I've been there. I've taken classes. I know what it's like. But sometimes you're gonna miss out the fun of seeing a movie, or even if you just I'm sure you're gonna find a scene you like. It's really hard to see a movie and not like it at all. Like even like some of the worst films I've seen, like I would find something good to say about it. Like I think I saw like Saw 4, and even though that movie was completely boring, there were some scenes I genuinely liked, like a spoiler, like the Jigsaw ran a clinic, like a clinic, and his wife had a miscarriage because of this one of his clients were. I thought that was a genuinely good scene. It kind of like I thought that like was a good motivation to make him the way he is. So even in the worst of the worst, there are films out there where like I don't like anything about it. Like Freddy Got Fingered, I would never watch again. But I don't know, if you can find some things to like in a movie, you could even if you say that movie was bad, but I enjoyed some good scenes, then I'd say it was at least worth the experience of just seeing it for the first time and getting your own opinion. So so I say form your own opinion.
Speaking of which, my first opinion of Batman vs Superman was definitely exciting, obviously, but you mentioned Green Lantern, and I saw that movie on opening day on 3D, which was really an an extra element. All the CGI. I think that one of the reasons the costumes were designed that way is to enhance the 3D. But I went to see Batman vs Superman opening day, and I got there early, and there weren't a lot of people, so I got Green Lantern vibes. At first, and then everybody showed up at the last minute. But all the negativity that we were reading, it kind of hindered my first viewing because the movie that they described, all the haters, I didn't see that movie. They described the movie that was like comparable to like Freddy Got Fingered. You said and I was expecting something really horrible where like you see like the boom mic in the scene. They were like, oh yeah, the editing's really horrible. So I was expecting like Ed Wood day and night stuff, and things like that. And that all the negativity never showed up at all. That's why like it was kind of like shocking that the first time I saw it, because I was looking for all the criticism that they had, and none of it was like present. Like I didn't enjoy it the first time I saw it because I was expecting their movie, like the haters movie. And that wasn't there. That's why, like, second or third time, I was like, oh, wow, they were so wrong. What was your first reaction?
Yeah, this is a really very, it's kind of a very interesting, it was a very interesting point in my life, the anticipation of, because, I grew up DC, I see superhero movies a lot of the times. This was something I've been waiting for my whole life to see, like Batman, Superman on the big screen. So, of course, since they first announced, like most of the time since then, I would think about the movie like, oh my god, I can't wait. So maybe part of me was a bit biased, but I try to give almost every film I see the benefit of the doubt. I even eventually went and saw Fan Four Stick like on a plane. It wasn't a good. I didn't think it was a very good movie. I didn't think it was like Catwoman bad though. It was just bad. It was just like I don't know. The actors did a good job. It did nothing for me. So I try to give as many movies I want to see a chance, give them the benefit of the doubt. And Batman v Superman, especially a movie I was looking forward to, and I already paid. I bought like IMAX 3D screening in Emeryville in Oakland with my friend Omid. We want to see it together. He paid for the tickets. I paid him. I reimbursed him. I wanted to see this. I was like, even if it's like somehow got 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, I was still going to see it. And then I don't know. I was in the shower and I don't know. There was this strange feeling. I had a feeling like this was not going to get good reviews. Like it was going to get like maybe like 50 to 60. Like I didn't expect it to get past like 70%. I thought like maybe we'd get like around 60, 75%. You know, because some of the critics were not a big fan of Man of Steel. Has like currently 55%. So I was not expecting, because it's very rare for sequels to do better than the first one. So I was not expecting great reviews. But like when I saw at first it was like 9%. I'm like, whoa, that's like fantastic bad. Then later on the day it got to 41%. Then it like dropped to like 30 something. And then I don't know. I was just like really like confused and just really stressed out about it. I was talking to Omid. Like, I don't know what's going on, man. Like, there's all these bad reviews, and I started seeing I watch these assholes, the completely unnecessary podcast guys, Pat and Ian. They're just completely go off the rail on the DC films, and they were talking about they were reading all the reviews, and they were trying to make it. They're trying to blow it out of proportion, blow it out their asses, and saying, "Oh yeah, this movie sounds so horrible. I'm not seeing this." And instead of giving a chance to form their own opinion. I mean, I read some of the reviews, and one critic, I think Michael Phelps, said it was like watching The Odd Couple. Like, I mean, maybe I don't know. Like, I didn't really see that either. But okay, so my first viewing experience, I saw the movie 6 times in theaters because I guess I wanted to see if the bias would die down, if I would get sick of it. By the 6th viewing, there were some scenes I felt dragged on a bit too longer, but I still enjoyed all the viewings I saw it in. So I'm sitting there was a big line, there were DC fans and I was wondering if this was going to be like The Phantom Menace, like it would still get a good box office, but everyone I thought it was like going to get like everyone would try to deny themselves that it's a good movie, and that didn't. It was very. At the end of the day, it's a divisive film. A lot of people liked it, but obviously there are a lot of jaded fans that don't. There's a lot of critics that don't. I'm in the theater, and I talked to like one guy who says like, I hear it's getting bad reviews. I'm like, man, I wonder if it's going to be like The Phantom Menace, where everyone's and like, oh, and he's like, he's like, this guy definitely thought it was going to make money. I'm like, I was like really confused. I was really not sure how much it was going to make because like bad reviews and like a lot of the casting choices people didn't like, and so I was really like wondering, man, what's going to happen? Who's going to see this movie? Then. So I'm seeing it with Omid. We're sitting in IMAX. The credits play, and immediately it's like I'm looking into the page. Like the first 20 minutes of the film, it's like I'm reading into a page of the comic books. Like the narration of there was the falling leaves. I was wondering if this was the negative part, because I wonder if Bruce holding out his hands as descending with the bats was like too Jesus allegory, too pretentious, and then like they show the fade to white, enter the Superman. I'm like, holy crap, this is like a comic book. I'm like, wow, and then I'm watching the film. I'm trying to like figure out what was wrong with it. I'm like there were like I think like 3 or 4 scenes. I'm like, okay, that was pretty stupid, but I was like, this is a bad film. I think some of the things that didn't make sense to me. I was like, my friend Omid and I, when he did the Jolly Ranch, I was like, this is pretty weird. Yeah. I mean, I know some of you like try to say, oh, it's just showing off his power, showing off he has power. Yeah, okay, I can buy that, but I guess it's just still a weird scene for me. It's just it's not something I would imagine Lex Luthor doing in a movie, feeding a Jolly Rancher to a lawyer, a senator. And then I'm watching the movie, and there were some scenes like I was like I'm kind of like, even though I studied 4 years of film class, there are scenes like it's kind of weird. Like people say, oh, the scenes are so boring, but I'm like, there are boring conversation scenes in the Avengers. There's the Star Wars prequels, but I mean I like Episode 3, but even Episode 3 of Star Wars had like some really boring sit down scenes. I'm just like I'm like, it's kind of a bit of a hypocrisy, I guess you could say. And I'm leaving the theater. So like, and then at the end of the movie, the big climax with Doomsday and the spear. I was like, oh my God, what if this is it? Like, and then I was like, really like they actually did it. They actually did the death of Superman. Like, what? Like, there is he? No. I mean, he's got to come back, right? So some people were a bit teary-eyed. I was just like in disbelief. Like, what? Wow, and no, man. Oh, man. It was just. Oh, man. It was. I couldn't stop talking about it because there was just so much. I thought it was a good movie, and I'd see it over and over again. I saw it once with my dad, and he said it was a very powerful movie, like the third or fourth viewing of it. And then we went to go see Captain America: Civil War, and he said, "I like Batman and Superman more because this has too many characters." So yeah, I mean, just one last point here. So we did. I don't want to plug my channel, but I mean, if you guys want to find my YouTube channel, my friend and I did a following video vlog of it afterwards, and I do some following videos about it too. Yeah, I don't think it deserves. I don't think it deserves 250. I think the 253 critics that gave it negative reviews. I think a lot of them were a little unjust, just in my opinion. But it's their opinion. So far, the majority of the audience on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb feel differently than compared to the critics. So, Oh, and then the other scene I didn't like was I just think how Lex Luthor became bald and he just shaved his head. He's bald. I didn't. Some people didn't mind that. That's just a nitpick. But the movie, the theatrical version I like, and then I saw the Ultimate Edition. I liked it a little less. Still like the theatrical cut, but the Ultimate Edition had more scenes of Superman. There's more to it than that, and yeah. So I think overall, I think people who don't like the movie, have their reason to like it, and I think everybody has different reasons for liking a movie, and that was my personal experience. I can't speak for everyone else who felt if they liked it or disliked it. I'm just telling you from my point of view.
Cool. And it's funny because one of the things that I keep hearing is that there were too many characters with Batman vs Superman, and I thought about Iron Man 2. You have 5 characters introduced in Iron Man 2. You have Samuel L. Jackson, because the cameo didn't count. So you have Nick Fury. You have not War Machine, but a Whiplash. You have Justin Hammer. Then you have Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow and Agent Coulson. So you have 5 characters in Iron Man 2. Batman vs Superman has also 5 characters introduced, but 2 of them get taken out. So that kind of cleans that whole, there were too many of them. So, for instance, we've never heard of Justin Hammer ever since,
nice job making Justin Hammer look like the comics, not.
Yeah, and I mean, it's that goofy villain got a pass, but, Lex didn't. And, it's funny because, I was thinking about, what the difference is between, the theatrical cut and the extended cut, and there were 2 big differences that I noticed. One was the Africa scene. There was a lot more scenes in the Ultimate cut, but what I got from it in the theatrical cut is that it didn't really matter what happened, because after that dictator gets taken out by Superman, I read it as the opposition invaded the village. So it was basically Superman did something good, and then other people showed up to do damage. So I took it us, in the world, if the U.S. goes to liberate some country, and then the opposition comes in. So I thought it was kind of that powerful, but that required me to fill it in. Whereas I think the audience just wants everything spelled out. The other one was the motive to fight him, hand to hand. And the theatrical cut was Perry White, basically going, nobody cares if a journalist is going to take down an iconic figure, a vigilante, So in the extended cut, it was basically this guy is killing people, please stop him physically, by the plea of a mother. So those kind of changed the dynamic a little bit. I mean, it's still the same movie. It just required that, audiences do a little bit of thinking, and me, I grew up reading comics. Filling in between the panels is a prerequisite. It's kind of like with you in film studies. Sometimes films, like Rebecca by Hitchcock, there's a lot of things that you have to fill in.
Let's talk about what about movies that initially got bad reviews, but then got praise over time. The Shining, Blade Runner. What else? Fight Club. Yeah, those movies are movies critics didn't like or at first, and then over time they saw a greater appreciation for it. I don't even think they liked Psycho that much either. Hitchcock was kind of Hitchcock and Kubrick were both innovative, unconventional storytellers at the time, and they had a different way that attracted audiences, and that's probably why so many people like BVS because it is such an unconventional way of storytelling a superhero film. I mean, I think when Zack Snyder said, "I'm a comic book guy and I try to make it as aesthetically as possible," so he was trying to make the movie as if it was coming pages of an Elseworlds comic coming to life. And you can make the argument, okay, the Burton, Schumacher, Nolan films were Batman Elseworlds stories, or Donner. I mean, because they're all different universes of Superman. Okay, but to be fair, this was the first. I felt Man of Steel, to some extent, and Batman v Superman were kind of the first time I was watching an Elseworlds comic being told to life. So that's why I could separate it from the main, Rebirth New 52 stories or the main canon comics, because I mean, they're not trying to tell the main canon comics. They're trying to tell a story that's different and unique, and people want to come back to. And it's good to know that Batman v Superman had the biggest opening comic book weekend of all time. And then I know everyone complains it had a really terrible second weekend drop. That means that many people hated it. Well, it could be that, but it also means it was also a strange release date. March, and Beauty and the Beast just broke its record. But to be fair, Batman v Superman had to go against Easter, and not many people go to the movies on Easter. So Beauty and the Beast had a better advantage of having a bigger opening weekend, and Easter's not going to be until April this year. So they had the luxury of making more money. And yeah, I mean, I guess you could say the bad reviews were also a big contributing factor to the drop. But if you actually just do the research of how much money past films have done in their second weekend, like for example, Age of Ultron did 191 million domestic, and then second weekend it did like 78 million, which is about the same $115 million difference BVS made. So if you just look at the movies. If you just look at the percentage, you're just going to think, oh, it's a big percentage, so it must be a failure. But if you actually compare how much a movie lost in the second week compared to its first week, instead of the actual percentage of how much they lost, you'll see it's really not that much of a difference. And again, also Age of Ultron was released during the summer. BVS was released during late spring, so early spring. So I do think back what you're saying, people need to start thinking and seeing things a little differently, and instead of kind of going with the narrative, worst drop since X-Men Origins or the Incredible Hulk or the 2003 Hulk. If you guys are going by, that sounds like it did really terrible. If you actually just look at Box Office Mojo, 166 million opening weekend, 51 million second weekend, which is not that much, but Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows, 169 million opening weekend, 47 million second weekend. So, and compete with Captain America. Yeah, but I'm just saying the drop happened. A number of factors could have led to the drop, not just Captain America. So.
And then you brought up a really good point, repeat viewings. So for instance, I knew the movie was working when I saw regular people, not comic book fans, going to the movie with their kids and stuff, and they were crying. You know which scene I'm talking about. That scene is very powerful not to cry, and that's when I knew the movie was going to work, and the critics weren't going to really matter. The other cool thing that I've noticed is a lot of adults that like these movies. We buy the statues, $150. We buy all the attire and cool stuff like that. I think one of the coolest things that this movie brought is adults into the movie theaters. Because back in the 80s, dude, I was surrounded with really cool movies. Blade Runner, you mentioned, also RoboCop, Predator, Terminator, and those were pretty violent movies for adults. That niche that the Matrix, the first Matrix, kind of brought back. R-rated. Kick-ass sci-fi movies that, all of a sudden Deadpool is claiming to be the king of because it's trendy. Also made a lot of money. So it's I saw all the 80s kids, brought their kids to see this movie multiple times. And I think that's one of the jealousy that the opposition has, where they go to see their movies a lot of times. but it hasn't had the same impact for like non-comic book people. You know, it happened with Suicide Squad, where like women, Latino, and African Americans were like the major driving force behind the success of it. And it wasn't because like, oh, you know, we're just gonna like appeal to comic book people. You know, we're still talking about this movie. You know, like, and I mean, it's.
No one's talking about Iron Man 2.
I know, right? Or 3 for that matter. Burn. But yeah, like, I think, you know, you studied film, and Zack Snyder also studied film, and he does most of the storyboards himself. One of the things that I realized is that I think people consider him a hack because he doesn't force his agenda into movies. You know, like if all he is doing service to the comic books and finding things to add to it. And that's, you know, it's not like he's adding Joss Whedon humor where it needs not be. You know, if you remember the first X-Men movie, it was very serious with sprinkled Joss Whedon one-liners that some of them work and some of them were kind of cringe-worthy. But I think that's why, you know, people don't know what to make of Zack Snyder, because he's just doing justice to like the material, but not to, you know, the fan. You know, like in the intro of Batman vs Superman, which movies were playing in the cinema? Do you remember those?
Yeah. I think one was Zorro, and the other one was Excalibur. And I didn't know what Excalibur was. I never saw the movie, but I did know. I somebody on the DC fan page said like they were taking certain notes, and you know, I even showed them and to one guy, and then he's like, oh, you know, I guess Zack Snyder can do subtlety. But I think there's this one YouTuber, Leon Thomas, who talked about that scene with Excalibur and the references, and said that's just what they are. That's they're only references. But you know, I mean, to be fair, you know, you can't really know what a person's thinking. You know, you can't really like you didn't really ask the question. Okay, why does Zack Snyder put Excalibur in like the you know the beats, the notes, the quips, and the references to that movie? You know, where, you know, like Excalibur or King Arthur stabs one dude and Doomsday stabs Superman. Why did he do that? Well, I think one of our guys told me it was because it was like a kingdom. It was like Arthur was trying to take back a kingdom that was being ruled by a tyrant, and you know, Lex Luthor was a tyrant, and you know, so it could be another Jesus allegory. You know, I mean, I know Snyder, you know, and to be fair, Snyder, he's not the first guy to think of Superman as Jesus. I mean, it goes back like to Smallville. It goes back to probably even some of the earlier cartoons. I don't know which ones, but you know, I mean, Superman being a messianic figure was not Zack Snyder's origin. He's not the creator of that concept. And you know, I think what's really cool is, you know, like what do you think like he did when? What do you think? What do you think Snyder was trying to say by using references to that movie?
Well, I think that's it goes back to like the being a visual director. You know, as a movie director, you have 2 hours, possibly 3, to tell an entire story that would take many pages in a book. That's, you know, that symbolism is what good directors do. You know, like Hitchcock had a giant telephone close to the camera to signify its importance. What Zorro signifies is Batman. You know, because Batman originally was inspired by Zorro in The Shadow. So it's kind of telling you right there that, you know, that is also from the Frank Miller comic, and Frank Miller paid homage to that. Frank Miller didn't have to put Zorro in there. He could have put something from the 80s or 70s or whatever he was referencing. So it goes back to, like, you know, good storytellers using the limited amount of frame space. And for Excalibur, you know, Henry Cavill is from the UK. So you can make a reference to, like, the UK and Excalibur bringing everybody together that represents the old world, which was Krypton. You know, like most people that came to America or the Americas are from the old world, Europe. So Europe kind of represents, you know, Krypton and the old ways and stuff like that. So by him forging, you know, a death of Superman to that end, it's kind of giving you the idea that, you know, the Superman, you know, is saying goodbye to the old world, which is, you know, also Doomsday and Zod and all that stuff, and it's embracing the very, very Americana, you know. So it's using the Arthurian legend to forge our own, you know, superhero. So yeah, like you have to like know what, you know, they're referencing, and it kind of goes, wow, that was pretty clever. You know, like I was, you know, when I saw Batman holding the spear, I thought I was like, oh, that's pretty epic. But Superman holding it, I was like, that's mythic, you know? And I think that's one of the reasons why like these superheroes for DC work so well, because they're mythic, you know, and myths are like everywhere, you know? A lot of people don't realize that, you know, like I'm from Mexico and stuff, so there wasn't like a lot of Marvel there growing up. It is no surprise that most of the latest Marvel Avengers have, you know, changed, you know, sex and ethnicity to be more appealing, whereas the DC comics were always mythic, therefore always appealing. So I think that's also kind of what they don't get about these movies, you know, like everything has it's like a weird cipher, you know. You have to figure these things out. What are your so it's been a year. Obviously you've been engaged online, you know, and stuff like that. Are you planning to do maybe like kind of like a commentary for the movie? Because I would love to do a 3-hour commentary just for this movie alone. Like, what are your thoughts since it's been a year?
Name the time and place. Yeah, no, I mean, like, I'm moving to New York in 3 weeks. I'm gonna have like my own like entertainment center and stuff, and yeah, you know, I also have this friend, you know, who lives in New York, and you know, I'd love to do. I haven't done commentary. I kind of did like I tried to attempt to do a riff track commentary with my friend Nick, and you know, it was really hard to do because you know, we were trying to come up with as many jokes as possible. I haven't really had to try to do a serious sit down one. But yeah, I mean, the one thing I really would like to comment about the most, I'm going to comment about here, is just give me like a short answer that I'll take the mic. I'll take it back really quick. What was your take on the Martha scene?
Humanizing Eddie.
And you know what? I'm leaning towards that too. Because here's the thing, I had a completely different reaction to it than the people that either hated it or loved it. Like, people who hated it go, oh, it was. I see what Snyder was trying to do, but it was poorly executed. It didn't make much sense. Why would Superman say his own mother's first name instead of mother? And then, you know, the other side is, you know, well, I mean, to contradict that, people would say, oh, well, you know, that he's his alien mom, and Superman was trying to be, he wasn't trying to be Clark Kent, he was trying to be Superman, so Superman wouldn't say, yell out his mom's name to a stranger, or he wouldn't say my mother's name, but to me, this was, I don't know, like, I remember, like, I knew Superman's parents' names were Jonathan and Martha, and then, like, as far back as, like, reading, like, Batman's origin. I was reading a book about Batman's origin, Thomas and Martha Kent. I always thought her name was Lily for some reason. Then I found her name was Martha Wayne. And then I'm like, holy crap, that's Superman. I wonder if they ever addressed this in the comics. And then seeing that, I wasn't laughing at the scene. I was, like, laughing with the scene. Like, I was like, I've been waiting for somebody to point that out. Like, I didn't care. I was like, I didn't care how people thought of the scene. How I felt about that scene was, it was nice because like it made me appreciate Snyder more because he knew his stuff. He knew this was something that should be addressed, and I was laughing with it. I was like, oh my god, they finally did it. I'm like, they did it here. I'm like, yes. I was clapping. I was like, yes. Oh my god, it was great. They finally acknowledged it, And yeah, no, I really appreciate they had that. They shared something in common, a human connection like that, and that's something I would probably not have. I'm probably saying it here because I probably would have to. I wouldn't have enough time to say on the commentary because by now, like Wonder Woman's showing up, and oh my God, I will get into that pretty soon. The theater was clapping, like, oh my God, like Gal Gadot, like she nailed it, man. She for those 5, 6, 7 minutes she was on screen, like it was like heaven, man. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so pumped for a movie coming out. New York has some of the best theaters, so I can't wait to see her movie there. But yeah, oh my God, no, like when she said I've killed creatures from other worlds before, I was like, ah! I was just so giddy. Like one of the first reactions on Twitter was like, oh my God, this movie made me giddy. Like that was one of the scenes that made me giddy. Like when then they said the line, "Is she with you?" I thought she was with you. Like just her. I mean, I know Superman helped her a little bit, but to be fair, she got a few minutes on her own too. Like Superman was trying to rescue Lois too. So like this, like I was like, holy crap, she's doing great. Like she doesn't need any help. Like let her kill Doomsday. Like yeah. So yeah, I mean, your thoughts on Wonder Woman?
Well, I think it's about time. And I think they really assembled a really good team. I was looking at everything. Costumes, choreography, acting, dialogue. Editing, color palette. My initial reaction was that it was really beautiful how they introduced that character, because you don't need to introduce Wonder Woman if she's going to be introduced later on. It's basically the same thing that Black Panther and Spider-Man get a pass on, with Civil War. So I think that totally works for it. I also think that one of the looking to wrap it up, I think this movie kind of like established like the pacing, because it took 5 movies to get to the Avengers, and it's taking 5 movies to get to the Justice League. So it's not really rushed at all, So they're taking their sweet time. And one of the things that keeps me really happy is that instead of having like someone like Kevin Feige, like directing every single micromanaging, they're getting directors who really understand the material. Like the Lego Batman director loves Nightwing. So therefore, Warner Brothers is like, okay, let's look into it. So it's basically they're looking for partners and creative people, much like comic book companies look. If Jim Lee is like, I want to do X-Men again, they're like, okay, who do you want as a writer? And they're like, I want the guy who does Saga. Boom, there you go. So that's the way they approach comics, and I think that's a great way to approach movies. Instead of like assembly line, look for talent who's actually caring about it, and just go for it.
Exactly, and the future of DC, I'm really optimistic about it because they kind of have a Kevin Feige figure, Geoff Johns, who keep in mind people like there's a lot of Goyer hate. I'm not a fan of Goyer myself, but I kind of enjoyed Blade Trinity, so it's like I'll give I'm really looking because I know Geoff Johns is also writing it, so there's really him and Goyer and Johns working together might be a good thing. Maybe it'll like a lot of the worst of David Goyer will be completely overshadowed or completely erased with Johns, right? Because remember, this is the guy who reintroduced Hal Jordan, brought back Barry Allen. This guy loves an era where DC shined the best, so he knew these characters were important and had to bring them back. He used the phrase hope and optimism, and this is the guy. This is a guy. He does. Geoff Johns is no he's no saint either. He's done some questionable things in the comics too. Killed off characters for questionable reasons, but the guy respects comics. He has more respect for comics than whether you like Goyer or not. Than Goyer, he has more respect for comics than Goyer, and. Like I said, I'm still going to see Green Lantern Corps. I really always want to see Jon Stewart on the screen. I don't know how much money it will make because like Blade Trinity did not do that well at the box office, and I mean it's one thing if Goyer wrote all the Blade movies, but as a director, like I don't know how well it's gonna do, but we'll see what happens with that. And Justice League is gonna really be a huge deciding factor for the future of the universe. If Justice League is like both critics and fans like all are like, if that's like the vast majority that don't like the movie, it's going to definitely hurt the box office. It's definitely going to hurt another Justice League sequel. I mean, really, as long as these movies keep averaging $750 million a picture, I'm sure Warner Brothers will be okay, because people like to have this itinerary in their head that Batman v Superman lost the studio money somehow. And if you look up this one, like this columnist, this journalist, this critic, Mark Hughes, he had this amazing article about how movie studios make money other means. Time Warner made $4.5 billion on DC merchandise. Yeah, so anyone out there who thinks, oh, BVS lost the money, I don't think they did. Yeah.
And, I think they have a really good ace in the hole, because they have the comics to back them up. Say Justice League fails, which I don't think it will. Guess what's going to happen? Justice League Dark gets greenlit. Also, we can do Suicide Squad versus Justice League, where they take him down. Also, Injustice could be explored. So even if that was the case, the multiverse is there to help it out. And I don't think you can do the anti-Avengers. So, yeah, I think that one of the reasons why I'm really hopeful is because, like, all of this, it's, like, working out, like, the way they want it, not the way, like, bloggers want it. So, yeah. Anyways, it's been 47 minutes. It's gone by pretty damn fast. I'll go ahead and link up your channel. Give me the link and I'll put it in there. I'll probably upload it tonight and give it everybody to DC, the DC community. But yeah, we should do these more often, because like even if you're in New York, you can send me like all your recordings and then I'll just edit it and stuff.
Yeah, we can also do a live stream or a Google Hangout conversation, or I can record myself while I'm talking to you. If I can get a microphone like this, like on Amazon or something, I could because I got a podcast mic, but it didn't work. I spent like $60 on it. So thanks again, guys. This was a great conversation. I'm definitely looking forward to doing this again with you, Sergio, in the near future. I'm glad we got to do this now before I move, because it was a great foundation for future projects, and I hope to get my own podcast started at some point as well. And yeah, you get like all the DC fan pages. Sergio and I are with. You guys are great listeners, and we really want to hear your feedback and what you guys thought 1 year later of the theatrical cut of Batman v Superman, the extended cut of Suicide Squad, Man of Steel. If you're looking forward to Wonder Woman, Justice League, Aquaman, or any of the other future projects, just let us know, man. This has been great. Thank you, Sergio.
Thank you, too. Excellent.